Welcome, David Zock, the Futurist. We're super happy to have you.
Yep. Glad to be here.
Good to see
You're
you.
being in a home in isolation, right?
Yes, in our virtual quarantine. It's nice.
Yes.
So I'm really intrigued by the opportunity to have a conversation with you. You're somebody that I've been following for many years. You're a well-known futurist. And I've always wanted to ask you, in your mind, how do you find or define what a futurist is? I'd love to hear your definition of it.
Sure. And I think mine is a little different than a lot of people who call themselves futurists. I do actually have a degree in it from the University of Houston. So it's a real degree from a real university. And a lot of people who approach this, they're trying to predict the future. And if I could predict the future, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be on my own island right now. I'd be isolated on a paradise. What I try to do is help people understand how to think about it rather than telling them what to think. I'm not making decisions for them. I have no special insights other than one very specific thing. And that's that I don't know what the future holds. Leaving all these people going, oh, well, they have all these ideas. And they get vulnerable. They get taken by sort of the articulate incompetents who are selling something. Mm-hmm. And it's whenever I hear a forecast about the future, I always want to know, is there a profit motive behind the profit motive? If we agree with them, if we go along with what they say, are they going to get rich? Are they going to gain power? What's really going on here in that regard?
I love it. Now, what got you interested in it? I mean, we talked briefly about the fact that when we start thinking about a futurist or somebody that starts to conceive of what the potential could be, immediately my mind goes to a Gene Roddenberry, or one of my first thoughts. What got you interested in it? And I'd love to follow that question up. Maybe you can interlace some of this into the answer. What are some of the triggers? What are some of the signs? What are some of the markers that you look for when you start to set out and formulate your thoughts on this?
Well, it's funny, you mentioned Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek. I was 10 years old when that first came on, and we were only allowed 1 hour a week of television. And my oldest brother, who got really good grades, he watched it. I had to sneak down into the basement and hide behind the couch to watch the first episode. So my first episode of Star Trek was like this. But what I loved about Star Trek, what I still love about it, is there is this optimistic and hopeful sense of whatever comes in our way, we have the resources, we have the talent, we have the problem-solving ability to work our way through that. And I know you want to be a futurist, so here's a real simple rule. Everybody can be a futurist if they think about the implications of choices or decisions times 3. What are the implications of the implications of the implications? And you've seen how people do mind maps, where they go, all right, they'll say, if this, then this. And we're really good at going, if this, then this. Where we fall down is, and then what? But what a mind map does is you have to give multiple answers to what else does this mean? So it's this, and this. And then you take those and you extrapolate out, well, what else does that mean? What could that mean? And you take something that you initially think is negative or positive and see how it might turn bad. And my favorite example is, I hated school. I never liked school. I was a good learner, just never liked school. And so there's a sense of sometimes when you make a decision, you delay gratification. And what you do is you invest in your decisions in terms of, what else might this mean? And eventually it can pay off. But you want to be exploring the possibilities. This is the same kind of skill that if you ever went out for sports in school, a coach teaches you all these different plays. but you may never encounter that exact play. You won't in the real life. But what the training you, teaching you plays, teaches you how to play, how to respond no matter what comes your way. And so it is always about sort of being in the present. What's the present really like? You know, and I don't know about you, but I find that not only are most people, but including myself, a little delusional about what's really going on.
Particularly these days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And, you know, it's funny, you listen to people, there's this thing called hindsight bias, where we go back and rewrite our past, say, well, you know, we all knew this was going to happen. And there's always these inklings, but we didn't have enough money, or we didn't have sort of enough incentive to place those bets. And in a country like America, I think we are so comfortable, or at least we were, that we don't look at risk through, you know, clear eyes.
Yeah. Well, therein lies obviously some of the things that we really wanted to touch on today when we start to think about what a post-COVID world looks like. I mean, this is the perfect opportunity for us to take into consideration that mind motion of working through the various ripple effects of what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be curious to hear some of your thoughts on what if.
Well, I think one thing that is going to be very clear, and I'm not predicting the future here, I'm just identifying some things that are sort of glaringly obvious as we move forward. The whole notion of unfettered globalization and not having redundancy built in. You know, we exported all the manufacturing to China because it allowed us to export our pollution. It allowed us to export our labor issues. Well, now those are coming back. And I think that we are smart enough, particularly with, I mean, logistics is an amazing thing. You know, if you look at the economy, it's driven either by logistics or creativity. And when those two meet in the center, that's design. So it's design thinking. But we're going to be, I think, much better with our understanding of logistics, with things like redundancy. I definitely hope we do bring more manufacturing back, but we're going to have to really rethink, where's that labor going to come from? And there may be an awful lot of people who were working in offices may find themselves working in factories, but it's not the factory of our grandfathers. It's the factories of where it involves, I would say, not just simply education is not the key to the future. Being intelligent is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent. Well, I'll have to take you to the Amazon Fulfillment Center once we're allowed to get back into society, and show you a pretty incredible environment that is, to a large degree, automated by robots and other fun things. Mm-hmm. But you know, I want to be mindful of our time here together. I know that you're also in the throes of writing a book, and I'd love to hear a little bit about the body of work that you're creating now.
So it's called The Fog of Progress: Finding Clarity and Connection in Uncertain Times. And what has been fascinating is this was decided back in early February. And then this COVID thing shows up, and the term uncertain times is everywhere. You know, I should have seen that coming, right? It is, again, it's not a book of predictions, and it's more aimed at individuals on how to think through some of this stuff. A very simple thing that I think is rather relevant for your viewers is we have become obsessed with news and the new. And it's always, you know, it's almost like rats to the lever, where we keep going back to check, is there something new? Well, I want to suggest that people learn to balance news with olds. News is the stuff that's changed since yesterday that you might need in order to navigate. Old is therefore the stuff that hasn't changed since yesterday that you also might need to know in terms of navigating. News gets put out there sort of on the second. It's constantly updated. Look for things that have been synthesized, thought through. I mean, the obvious example are books, or, you know, museums. But anything that has shown a little bit of sort of passing the test of time. And we have become convinced that new is good, new is improved. But it isn't. New does not mean good, and old does not mean outdated. And the older I get, the more I agree with this.
Well, I really appreciate that insight very, very much. Very much, David. Hey, I think we're at the end of our 10 minutes, and I'd love to ask you, if you're ever interested, would you be open to doing another encore presentation?
Well, see what your viewers think, but yes, from my point of view, it'd be fun.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. All right. Stay
Okay, thanks,
healthy.
Chip.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.